Hello students, this is chapter number 2, sexual reproduction in flowering plants, video number 2. If you have not seen my video number 1, then please see that video and then see this video, you will understand it. Now in this video, we'll be talking about the female reproductive structure, that is the carpel. And you all know that the carpel is made up of what? Ovary, style and stigma. Ovary, that is the basal part, and it has an ovarian cavity. It encloses an ovule within it, and the ovule is attached to the cushion-like structure called placenta. The style, it connects the ovary with the stigma, and the stigma, it is a receptive portion, a receptive surface for the pollen grains. Now let us talk about megasporangium. Ovule, the other name for the ovule is megasporangium. The megasporangium or the ovule, the structure of the ovule, you can see over here, it consists of a funicle. Funicle, it is the stalk that is attached to the placenta. Then comes the hilum. You can see the hilum. The hilum is the junction between the ovule and the funicle. The integuments are the two covering one or more protective envelopes around the ovule, that is the integument. The ovule has two parts. One is the micropyle part, micropylar pole. The micropyle is the opening through which the pollen tube enters, and the other opposite part is known as the callosal end. Inside the ovule, the cells are known as the nucellus cell. It is a mass of cell which is enclosed under the integument, and one of the nucellus cell enlarges and it is known as megaspore mother cell that divides to form the megaspore, which is also known as the female gametophyte. Now let us understand how the female gametophyte or the megaspore is being formed. As I told you just now, inside the nucellus, there are one of the cell enlarges, if you can see over here, which is known as megaspore mother cell. This megaspore mother cell undergoes meiosis 1 to form two haploid megaspore. This stage is known as megaspore dyad, and then it undergoes meiosis 2 to form 4 megaspores, which is known as megaspore tetrad. Out of these 4 megaspore, 3 degenerate and only 1 remains, and that's why the development of this megaspore is known as monosporic development. Now, the one megaspore, that is the functional megaspore, the nucleus of that megaspore undergoes mitotic division, because you should remember that the megaspore is haploid. It undergoes mitotic division thrice. So in total, it forms 8 nuclei. Now, when there is karyokinesis, the karyokinesis is followed by cytokinesis later. First, there is only karyokinesis, that is 8 nuclei will be formed. These 8 nuclei arranges itself in such a way that 3 nuclei towards the micropylar end, 3 towards the callosal end, and 2 in the center. After that, the cell wall formation takes place. At the micropylar end, 3 cells are being formed altogether. It is known as the egg apparatus. You can see over here. In that, the 2 corner cells are the synergids and the center is the egg cell. On the callosal end, again, 3 cells are being formed, which are known as the antipodal cells. So in total, 6 cells. And in the center, which contains 2 polar nuclei, is the central cell. So this is a condition which is 7 cell, 8 nuclei stage. Now, after this, the next topic is pollination. We all know, we have studied that what is pollination? Transfer of pollen grains from anther to the stigma of the plant, that is known as pollination. Children, you also know that pollination basically is of 2 types, self-pollination and cross-pollination. Self-pollination further is of 2 types, autogamy and geitonogamy. Let's talk about autogamy. Autogamy is a self-pollination where the pollen grains are transferred from the anther to the stigma of the same flower. That is self-pollination. Self-pollination takes place in both Chasmogamous as well as Callistogamous flower. So let us understand what do you mean by Chasmogamous and Callistogamous flowers. Chasmogamous flowers are the normal flowers which open up, but Callistogamous flowers are the flowers, if you can see the figure over here, are the flowers which do not open, they remain in the bud form. Now children, when they do not open, they remain in the bud form, they are bisexual, and for them, there is only autogamy that takes place, and only autogamies can take place. There is no other geitonogamy or xenogamy cannot take place because it does not open. And that's why there is a assured seed set formation in callistogamous flower. But if you talk about chasmogamous flowers, if it is a bisexual flower, then it can have autogamy, geitonogamy, or it can have xenogamy also. Now let's talk about geitonogamy. What is geitonogamy? It is a type of pollination where you can see the flowers are transferred from the pollen grains. The pollen grains are transferred from one flower to the another flower of the same plant. The flowers should be present on the same plant. The geitonogamy is functionally autogamy, but it is functionally, genetically it is autogamy. Why? Because it's on the same plant, so genes are same, but functionally it is xenogamy because it requires pollinating agents to transfer it. Then comes cross-pollination or xenogamy. It is the transfer of pollen grains from anther of one flower to the stigma of another flower present on another plant but of the same species. Xenogamy requires pollinating agents. Even geitonogamy requires pollinating agents. So there are different types of pollinating agents. Here you can see autogamies, geitonogamy, and xenogamy. Autogamy in the same flower, geitonogamy, flower present on the same plant, and xenogamy, the flower from one plant to another plant of the same species. What are the different pollinating agents? You can see in the slide: wind, water, bird, insect, bat. So it can be characterized into abiotic and biotic. Now, wind pollination is known as anemophily. For a plant to be wind pollinated, what all should be the features? They should be small in size. They are often dull. There is no scent, no nectar produced because there is no insect. They do not have to attract the insect. The pollens are light and smooth so that they can be carried away by the wind. There is large amount of pollens produced. The quantity is very high. The anthers are loosely attached to the so that they can release their pollens in the wind. Stigma hangs outside of the flower so that they can catch the dripping pollen, and stigma is feathery or net-like again so that they can trap the pollen. So this you can see over here, that wind pollination in corn. Then there is water pollination or hydrophily. Children, water pollination, obviously the plant has to be aquatic, but remember one thing, all aquatic plants do not undergo water pollination. Generally, the aquatic plants undergo pollination by wind or by air. Wind or by insect. But there are some water pollinated plants like Vallisneria and Hydrilla or seagrass. In Vallisneria, if you can see, the female flower has a long stalk, and with the help of the stalk, the female flower reaches the surface of the water, and the male flower, the male gamete, are released inside the water. They swim and they reach up. In this, if the plants are water pollinated, then these pollen grains are covered by mucilaginous covering so that they do not get wet. It prevents them from wetting. Now let's talk about pollination by insect. Naturally, if the flower is insect pollinated, then it is beautifully colored. It produces nectar, it produces smell, sweet smell, but it also produces foul smell. If it has to attract flies and beetles, it will produce foul smell. But if it has to attract Butterflies or the ones which get attracted by sweet smell, it will produce sweet smell. It produces nectar, and nectar is as a reward to the insect. And these pollen grains are sticky. See, wind pollinated pollen grains are non-sticky, but insect pollinated pollen grains are sticky. Petals, as I told you, they are brightly colored. Now, when they are insect pollinated children, there you can see that there is sometimes a relationship between, like yucca and moth, the relationship where the insect moth, it lays its egg inside the yucca flower, and while it is laying its egg inside the flower, inside the ovary of the flower, then it takes the pollen grain and transfers it to another plant. And the larvae develops inside the ovary, and it feeds on the seed produced by the fruit. Now, as I told you, there is a pollen pistil interaction. All the pollen grains which reach the stigma do not develop a pollen tube. These pollen grains have to be compatible to develop the pollen tube. Now, the stigma may accept the pollen grain or reject the pollen grain. So there is a continuous dialogue, a dynamic process of pollen recognition is followed by the promotion or inhibition of the pollen. That is known as pollen pistil interaction. And there is some chemical released by these stigma or the pollen grain, which actually we still don't know what is the chemical, because due to which it recognizes the pollen grains or it rejects the pollen grains. Because once we come to know about it, it will be very helpful for us to prepare hybrids. And obviously, it will be helpful by artificial hybridization process. We could prepare hybrids more easily. Talking about artificial hybridization, it has two processes to follow. One is emasculation, another is bagging. Emasculation is removal of anther from the bisexual flowers, and then you have to bag the flowers. You have to cover the flowers with polythene sheets so that unwanted pollen grains do not reach them. If it's only a female flower, then no emasculation is required. Only bagging is done. So with this, I finish my video number 2. That thank you, and very shortly we'll be bringing video number 3 on this chapter. Thank you.